This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
And welcome to the program. I'm Roby Brock. It's been a busy week in Arkansas politics, most notably due to 2 weeks worth of scheduled, delayed, canceled, and carried out executions. Joining me to discuss is Arkansas Attorney General Leslie Rutledge. Welcome to the program.
Thank
Good to
you,
have
Roby.
you back with us.
Thank you.
I was commenting before we got rolling there. You don't look like you've stayed up past midnight for 2 weeks in a row. So,
Well, we have unfortunately, because of the sheer volume and number of cases involved in these, in the 8 prisoners that have been set for execution, we have literally been working around the clock some nights, and the attorneys at the AG's office have done tremendous work over the last few weeks.
Tell me a little bit about what you have learned through this process. There has not been an execution since 2005 in Arkansas. I would imagine that some of the attorneys on your staff probably haven't been through an execution process before. Did you learn some new things as you went along in the process? And what might you do different?
Well, while these were the first executions that have been carried out while I have been Attorney General, we did have people on staff, and we do, that have been at the AG's office for a number of years that were able to provide insight and guidance that had been counsel to Governor Huckabee when he was governor. So we were able to prepare for each and every case that was before us each night that an execution was set, to anticipate the sort of litigation at the last minute, to respond with briefs within just in half an hour or 45-minute warning, just doing really tremendous work, legal work on behalf of the state of Arkansas and Arkansans to see that these sentences were carried out.
Obviously, inmates are due process. That is part of the legal system that we're in. But could there be some changes made? Should there be some changes made, do you think, to maybe alter these last-minute curveballs that came up here that really pushed the timeline of the midnight death warrant in some instances?
Well, we want to make sure that no one's rights are infringed upon. If there are changes that need to be made, perhaps we can look back and work with attorneys and Arkansans on both sides of the issue to make sure that everyone, that we do carry justice out, that we do carry these sentences out, and certainly we never want to infringe on someone's rights.
Well, lawmakers are going to bend your ear quite a bit on some suggested changes. I mean, is there anything that you can already see as something that you might want to have in place? Because not necessarily as an extra tool, but just as an extra way to follow through with the process in a way that allows for justice to occur, but at the same time might be a better way of carrying things out.
Well, we were able to carry out 4 of the 8 executions that were set. The 4 that were not carried out were because the courts had either issued a stay or something was needed to be resolved back at the lower court, and we're going to be moving forward with those. And so I think that we showed that of the 8 execution dates that were set, we did in fact carry out 4. There was a tremendous amount of filings that were made, over 100 filings, 50 cases were involved in these 8 prisoners' appeals and litigation surrounding those cases. I don't know that there's anything at the top of my head right now, Roby, that we would need to put in place.
So the governor said in a press conference on Friday that it is going to, we asked him, when are you going to carry out another series of executions or just an execution? He said, I will have to receive notice from the Attorney General on that in order to issue the death warrants and start that process. So it begins with you notifying him that there are, 29 death row inmates?
That's right. There are currently 29 inmates on death row, and of those, 4 of them had exhausted their appeals. Now, keep in mind, those were the same 4 that had execution dates set and that the court sent back. So we will go back to the Arkansas Supreme Court on Bruce Ward and Don Davis. Stacey Johnson's case will go back to Sevier County for the trial court to look at the DNA, and then on Jason McGee
right,
had a stay put in place. That stay will expire in mid-May, and at that time we can revisit. There's one more inmate who we are waiting to hear back from the Supreme Court of the United States as to whether or not all appeals have been exhausted.
So do you think that by the end of May you could be pushing the governor to set new execution dates again?
Well, if in fact there are no appeals left for these inmates, and I will give the governor those names and that he can set dates for execution. I will not be pushing him to set those dates. This is something that is strictly the governor's decision once he knows that those inmates have exhausted all their appeals.
But some of that will come to fruition, I guess, in May at some point in time. So in terms of just the schedule for when the appeals are going to potentially run out.
Well, that will be potentially the earliest time. And that's, again, Jace McGee, the inmate who the parole board had voted to say that they would grant clemency, and the federal judge said, let's put a stay in place because of that decision of the parole board, and that will expire in mid-May.
There also is a lot of talk among state lawmakers. It will not be on the special session call for this next week, but at some point in the future, you're going to see Arkansas legislators look at other methods of execution because of the problems obtaining the drugs in the lethal injection process. Is there any method of execution that you could say right now definitively is off the table because it's unconstitutional or it's already been, I guess, declared by the courts as a method that's not suitable for execution?
Well, both of the methods that we have on the books, the lethal injection, the protocol, which the legislature said, and that's what we use to carry out these 4 executions, has been upheld in the courts. We still have the electric chair and electrocution on the books. However, we have, since not used that in decades, and that, matter of fact, that chair is in the Old State House Museum.
Well, it'd be difficult to use that one then if it's in a museum right now.
It is, as it should be.
All right, last question for you. Oklahoma's had a commission that has looked at the death penalty in that state, looked at its executions, obviously with what they call the botched execution a couple of years ago. Do you want to see Arkansas conduct some sort of similar overview of the death penalty just based on this experience of the last 2 weeks, what you've experienced, what you've seen from the different sides that are out there? Should we have a deeper discussion about the death penalty, or do you think we're where we need to be?
Well, I think that we, again, were able to carry out 4 of the 8 executions that were not stays put in place by the courts. We carried those out in a manner that the juries and had said these are the sentences, the manner in which the legislature had put forth the protocol. I believe that there is a review that will be conducted, but it's a normal review. And I don't think, and the governor has stated this, and I agree with the governor, that we don't need a further review, a more in-depth review.
All right. She's Leslie Rutledge, Arkansas Attorney General. Thank you for being here.
Thank you,
Always
Ruby.
good to catch up
Appreciate
with you. And